Hi guys, I'm Nod, or the Skate Idiot as the channel name goes, and today I'll be teaching you guys how to do the ollie and the physics behind it. So first of all, what is an ollie? Well, the ollie is a jumping technique that allows skaters to hop over obstacles and onto curbs or basically anything that we can get onto. So, yeah. What makes the ollie so significant is the way that the skateboard sticks to the skater's feet in midair, which many people assume that the board is somehow attached to the skater's feet. But in reality, it's not. So, that is why I'm here today, which is to basically explain this simple basic skate trick to you guys. And hopefully you'll be able to take something back after you watch today's episode. I hope you enjoy. So, now that we know what an ollie is, how exactly do you do an ollie? Well, one of the first steps that you're gonna have to do is front foot needs to be positioned at the bolts of the front trucks, and the back foot needs to be placed in the middle of the tail. So basically, your front foot has to be positioned in the middle between the two bolts holding the front trucks and the back trucks. And that'll be your first step to doing the ollie. The next step to the ollie is going to be the pop, where you slap your back foot down on the tail towards the ground, making a pop-like motion or slap. Basically, you're gonna kind of stomp and pull your foot back. It's kind of like you're slapping something with your foot, or like stomping on something, or like let's say you're stomping on a cockroach. Yeah, so you're gonna be doing that on the tail, to the tail of the skateboard, to make the slap-like motion. The next step after a pop is going to be the jump upwards. So after the tail hits the ground, you're going to want to jump upwards, but then you're going to also want to slide your front foot from the middle of the board to the nose simultaneously. The popping of the tail of the board, jumping and dragging your foot up to the nose of the board has to be done in a fluent, well-coordinated, simultaneous motion in order to get a proper ollie. Basically, the jumping and dragging needs to be done right after the pop is done. The next step is the jump phase. With both trucks in the air, you should prepare for the landing phase. So the landing phase, you'll need to try to land with all four wheels hitting the ground at the same time in order to not fall off the ollie or ruin it, the trick. So to do this, you should try to kind of center your board or like balance the altitude, like basically balance your body, like try to keep it center of the board. Like so front foot has to be like maybe on the bolts, and back foot maybe also has to be on the bolts, so that when you're pushing the weight down or the board down, both wheels touch the ground at the same time. So once you hit the ground here, as you can see I'm doing here, you gotta bend your knees to a cushion or soften the land, so that, well, basically once you hit the ground, you gotta bend your knees to soften or cushion the landing and keep the center of your gravity balanced, and that be basically how to ollie. In order to kind of practice doing the ollie, the first practice you're gonna want to do is basically just practice slapping the slapping part or the pop, which is done by, adding weight to the tail of the board so that the front trucks go up in the air. And then you're going to want to apply weight to the front of the board so that the front trucks go down and touch the ground instead of in air. Basically, like, it's kind of like, when people want to stop from a skateboard, they basically lean on the back so that the front wheels go up and the tail of the board just kind of makes contact with the ground and just stops the board for you. It's kind of like that, but except you're just moving up, so you're pushing the front trucks up and then down. You're pushing up front trucks and down. So you're gonna want to practice this step for at least 10 minutes to get comfortable with the slap. So the next step you'll want to do after getting comfortable with slapping the tail is the dragging part, where you just basically apply pressure to the back. Just do the slap, but then don't slap it. Just make sure that the front trucks go up. And then all you have to do is use the side of your foot and just drag your foot up from the middle of the board to the nose of the board, or the top, just keep dragging it. Do this for at least 10 minutes. So once you're comfortable with the slap and the drag, the next thing you're gonna want to do is slap the board. This time, don't actually lean on the pressure. Like, get the front wheels to go up and just like stay there. You're gonna want to slap the board so that the board bounces, and then you're gonna want to jump and drag your feet up. So like I said, it's gonna take 2 weeks to do this, and you're gonna want to practice a little while. Maybe, I find it kind of discouraging sometimes because when you're only practicing on one trick, it gets kind of boring, and because you're not able to accomplish it in one day, it kind of makes you frustrated in some way, which is how I felt when I like first did the ollie. So one of my favorite things to do is just ride around, like get used to your board. Ride it until you're confident with your board. Like, you just get good at riding in general, and that'll help you a lot with balancing your board. So the next thing you might be wondering is, why does the board do what it does? Well, that's where the physics aspects of the trick comes in. To explain the physics, so the first one is basically the weight of the rider, which is pushing down on the board. 2, it's the gravity of the board acting on the Earth's surface, yeah? And 3, it's the force of the skateboard, well, the gravity acting up on the force that the skateboard is pushing. It's basically pushing the force of the skateboard up. As the skater is crunching down, he's basically applying force to the skateboard. So he's adding on to the force that is already being applied to by the skateboard to the ground. So when he pops the ollie, he accelerates himself upwards by straightening his legs and raising his arms to tame his balance. His rear foot exerts greater force on the tail of the board than his front foot on the nose, which causes the rear wheels of the board to pivot counterclockwise, which is the slapping part. Basically, he's applying pressure. He's putting force on the tail of the board, which causes the board to bounce up. So, to the next step, as the tail strikes the ground exerts a large upward force on the tail, which results in the board bouncing up, like I just said. With the board in the air, the skater slides his front foot forward, using the friction between his foot and the grip tape of the board to drag the board up higher. So basically, it's like he's pushing the board up with him using friction, which is mainly the purpose of the grip tape on the board. So the skater then pushes his front foot down to raise the rear wheels and level out the board. Basically, he's dragging up. When the board has reached maximum height, with both feet touching the board, the skater and the board begin to fall together under the influence of gravity. Well, we all know what happens next. Gravity eventually wins out, and the skater bends his leg to absorb the impact of the landing. So they come back down. But then as they're coming back down, the skater has to bend his legs in order to withstand the impact of the landing. Otherwise, like I said, if you don't bend your knees once you pop the ollie, as you're landing from an ollie, you're going to push the board away from you, which is going to result in you falling off the board, basically. Yeah, and so that's basically how an ollie works. Well, so as a personal reflection to my progression towards the ollie, during the first times I practiced it, I had a lot of trouble getting the board up in the air at first, until I realized I wasn't popping it hard enough. My front foot isn't sliding hard enough on the board as well, which is why I couldn't ollie. But then after practicing for a while, I also realized there was another factor causing this. It was because of my board. Since the material on my old board was made out of normal wood, which wasn't really suitable for skateboarding, but it was still okay to skate on in terms of just riding around but not doing tricks. Compared to maple wood, which is a must for skateboarders as this special kind of wood provides the bounce that skaters need to pop tricks and stuff. It took me around 2 weeks, as I said, before I finally got the ollie, and that's basically the ollie summarized in this lesson. So I really hope that what I taught to you guys today will like decrease the amount of frustrations you guys experience learning the ollie. It sure is a pretty hard trick to learn, but then once you get it, you're gonna thank the trick because well, once you learn the ollie, you're gonna learn a lot more tricks after this, like the kickflip, because you're gonna need ollie skills for the kickflip, the tray flip, and all the other famous tricks performed by famous skaters or just professional skaters. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope my tutorial helped with the ollie. If not, please leave a like, comment below and tell me how I can improve for the next video. So thanks for watching. See you next time.